G'day guys, welcome back. It's Rick from Vortex-RC. This is the fourth installment of the Let's Build a Plane series. Now in part 3, if you remember, we simply cut out some formers, which were strips of foam, for the internal wing structure, which helped create the airfoil of the wing. Now in part 4, you're about to see how we create a taper or a bevel for the rear chord section, so that when we fold the foam board over, everything sits nice and level and flush. And we're going to cut the aileron strips to size. Stay tuned, it's coming up next. Just before we begin, guys, this is the finished result of the first wing half. So I've already got the taper there, and I'm folding the foam board over. And I'm going to show you how the angle of the fold meets the taper, which is what we're trying to achieve here. So it's worked nicely, just the way I intended. So now we're preparing to do the same with the other wing half, or the second wing half. If you don't use two wing halves, you just need to do this to one, that's fine. So I use a straight edge, which I place near the rear of the chord length, and I come out about an inch from the edge, and then I use a sanding block, which I angle, and I start sanding up and down the wingspan length. Now that metal straight edge stops me from sanding the other side of the foam, which I don't want to do. And that's how I create the bevel or the taper that we're after. It works really well, I have to say. I don't like using a knife. Doesn't matter how sharp it is for me. When it comes to cutting a bevel or a taper on the quill foam board, I don't really get a good result, but that's just me. Sanding for me personally gives me a smoother, better, more exact finish, more even across the full length of the wingspan. So whatever works for you is good. This is what works for me. So I'm just making sure that it's even and smooth across the full length, at the beginning, at the end, in the middle, and so on. This may take a bit more attention to detail, a bit more care and attention to detail, but it's a nice step to take care of doing properly, because you will get a beautiful result at the end when it's finished. So I'm just making sure it's even everywhere and throughout. With just some additional gentle sanding here and there to make sure that taper is right where I want it and that it's even. Just checking with my hands to feel it here and there, and just doing a few more bits of sanding up and down just to make sure it is correct throughout. You don't even need a very abrasive sanding block to do this. The foam does break away quite easily from a sanding perspective. Just finishing it off nicely there. Okay, I think it's pretty much done. I'll show you what that looks like now. And there's the bevel, or the taper, that we set out to achieve. I'll just fold that foam board over and show you another close-up of what I mean.
So that taper should meet that folding foam board nicely. And we want it to be reasonably accurate so that when we apply the hot glue it will stick beautifully. So I've grabbed the second or the first wing half, joining them together, just making sure everything's still straight and aligned, including the taper on both wing halves, and just making sure it all looks nice, feels nice, is even where the taper is. And I'm going to put the carbon arrow shaft through and join the wing halves together using that, because that's how they'll be together as one wing. And then I will check that taper again and make sure it's smooth and even at the join and throughout. And I'll fold the foam board over. I'll do a simulated fold and make sure it is even throughout, including where the join is, including where the taper is. And I'll also just use the straight edge in a moment to check that I have a straight wing. So it's not just about the taper and the fold, it's making sure that the two wing halves together form a straight leading edge wing. And it does, so I'm really happy with that. There she is. That's completed. Even the underside looks pretty good, I have to say. Everything lines up nicely. I've already glued down the foam board sheet where we created that taper. I'll just show you what I'm trying to achieve here with the first wing I've already done. So that's what we're going to get when the job's complete. It's a beautiful looking airfoil with the foam board folded over, glued against the taper or the bevel that we created. And it's simply hot glued and it forms a beautiful join as well. Foam against foam, nicely done. So I've put my second wing half on the table, upside down. I've used my straight edge to create even pressure across the full wingspan, and I'm using a bit of a weight there, which is just my utility bucket or box full of goodies and so forth, just to add a little bit of weight across the full length of that wingspan. I'm also making sure any hot glue overflow I remove straight away. So that's pretty much dried now, and I'm removing the tape and I'm going to remove the straight edge, and we have completed the second wing half. Just checking for its accuracy throughout. I'll show you a close-up in a moment. So the wing is upside down and it has been glued to that taper when I folded the foam board sheet over, and it is stuck and glued into position very nicely. The rest of that overhang is our aileron section, which we're going to score and cut to size in a moment. Nicely done. That packing tape really does a nice job. So, getting ready to score cut the aileron strip now. So I'm using the straight edge once again, and I've aligned it right up against the edge of the chord. I've sticky taped it into position so it doesn't move, and I'm simply creating a score cut right across the aileron length. Now the idea here is to go right down to the paper backing of the foam sheet without going through, because the packing tape and the paper is our hinge mechanism for this. The aileron will move up and down without falling off, and the paper and the packing tape is the hinge mechanism. So just some gentle score cuts until I reach the bottom without going through. Doesn't matter if you do go through, there's more than one method involved in doing and achieving this, but this is the method I'm showing you for the moment. So I'm just checking to see if that sheet, that aileron piece, will start to fold, and it's not yet, so I'm performing another score cut just to loosen it up a little bit more. So with some care and attention to detail, you can achieve a great result with this without going through as well. So right down to the paper backing of the foam board. If you go through in a couple of little areas, it's not a bad thing, it doesn't matter. So here we go. That's our aileron. And it's hinging nicely. Hinging very nicely. So just making sure the movement is even throughout. And in a moment we're going to take off that straight edge and we're going to create a bevel for that aileron, or a taper, so that it moves up and down evenly in both directions. So here I have that same wing now. I've taken the straight edge off. I'm lying it flat on the table, right side up. I've bent that aileron flap or strip right over, and with a sanding block, once again, I'm going to sand up and down the wingspan there of that aileron strip and create a taper or a bevel. And that will allow the aileron to move evenly up and down. So it has a little more freer movement without being restricted by that straight edge score cut. So just some light sanding up and down the wingspan again on the edge of that aileron strip. You can eye off what it's looking like as you're sanding away. It's a simple process, simple step. And there we have it. You can see that bevel I've just created. And it's working beautifully too. So that's the wing upside down again. Here's a close-up of the bevel. Looks pretty good. And it has the movement we need for the up and down motion of the aileron. Nicely done. And it's even throughout. That's the top of the wing. Now obviously the aileron isn't going to be that large. It looks a bit weird if it's going to stay that large, but we're going to cut that to size in a moment. So now we're ready to cut the aileron strip to size. Now I'm going to cut the aileron strip so that it's 1.5 inches wide. 1.5 inch aileron strip. You can have a 2 inch, you can have a 1 inch, you can have whatever you like really. I'm just going by the standard measurements that I learnt from Ed from Experimental Airlines, and I'm just using his techniques, which work really well. So I'm measuring and marking out 1.5 inches on both ends, and then shortly I'm going to use my straight edge to produce the perfect aileron strip cut. So there we go, I'm putting it down, just working out the best way to position it. So I've turned it round. I'm actually going to clamp this straight edge in position so it doesn't move. So the only thing I have to be concerned with is performing my score cut right through to produce the 1.5 inch aileron strip that I'm after. So I'm going to use those little mini clamps I told you about earlier. I definitely recommend you get a set of those. They're an excellent 3rd, 4th and 5th pair of hands when you need them. So I've got my straight edge in position and I'm preparing to cut the aileron strip to size now. So I'm going to perform a number of score cuts. I never go all the way through and perform one single cut. Doesn't work as well for me. I like to go gently through the foam with a number of passes, whatever it takes. 2, 3, 5, 7. Gentle score cuts, making sure I'm perpendicular to the foam piece, and you end up producing the perfect aileron strip cut. Now you'll notice this aileron strip does not have the paper backing on the underside. It's only got it on top where the packing tape is, but I'll go into that a little bit more in part 5. There's more than one way of doing this. And for now I'm showing you this technique. So I'm nearly there. I've nearly cut through, and once complete we'll have our aileron and this wing will be finished. There we have it. That's the top side of the wing. That's the aileron in motion, and it looks pretty good, even if I do say so myself. You can see the airfoil shape of the wing. That's the full completed wing with aileron. That's the underside. You can see the bevel working beautifully. Our completed wing, guys.